lecture 6, that is impact of fossil fuel under environmental biotechnology. Learning objectives: to make the students aware of impact of fossil fuel. Learning outcome: at the end of this lecture, students will learn the following objective. Number 1, greenhouse effect, or we can say global warming. Number 2, ozone hole depletion. And number 3, the acid rain. So it will be finished with within 2 parts of the lecture under impact of fossil fuel. So the number 1 is greenhouse effect. If you see the history, Svante Arrhenius in the year 1859 to 1927 was a Swedish scientist who was the first to claim in 1896 that fossil fuel combustion may eventually result in enhanced global warming. He proposed a relation between atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration and the temperature. He and another person, that is Thomas Chamberlain, calculated that human activities could warm the earth by adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. This was not actually verified until 1987, and in 1988 it was finally acknowledged that the climate was warmer than any period earlier. The greenhouse effect theory was named, and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was founded by the United Nations Environmental Programme and the World Meteorological Organization. This organization tries to predict impact of greenhouse effect according to existing climate models and the literature information. The greenhouse effect is the rise in temperature that the earth experiences because certain gases in the atmosphere like water vapor, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, ozone, methane, for example, they trap energy that comes from the sun. These gases are usually called greenhouse gases since they behave much like the glass panes in a greenhouse. The glass panels of the greenhouse let in the light but keep heat from escaping, and this is similar to the effect these gases have on Earth. Sunlight enters the Earth's atmosphere passing through the greenhouse gases. As it reaches the Earth's surface, land, water, and biosphere absorb the sunlight's energy. Once absorbed, this energy is sent back to the atmosphere. Some of the energy passes back into space, but much of it remains trapped in the atmosphere by the greenhouse gases. This is completely natural process, and without these gases, all the heat would escape back into space and the Earth's average temperature would be 30 degrees Celsius colder. The greenhouse effect is very important process because without the greenhouse effect, the Earth would not be warm enough for humans to live. But if the greenhouse effect becomes stronger, it could make the Earth warmer than usual. So this is a picture which shows what is happening. We are getting solar radiation from the sun, that is which is absorbed by the earth is 235 watt per meter square. Now what is absorbed in the atmosphere is almost 67 watt per meter square, and 168 is absorbed by the lithosphere or the land surface, and it is getting warmth of 14 degrees centigrade, or our earth is kept warmth at 14 degrees centigrade. Now from the heat and energy in the atmosphere, what we can see, some this part is going out as a thermal radiation into space, that is 195, and some of the part again it is hitting the earth's surface. So this is particularly the heat and the energy that is present in the atmosphere, that is already present. Now, what is happening? What is this greenhouse effect? We are actually, from the Earth's surface, we are actually liberating out almost 452 watt per meter square of these gases, greenhouse gases. So what is happening is it is actually absorbing the heat much more than it was normally present in the heat and energy section in the atmosphere. So how much it is radiating out at that time when lots of greenhouse gases are present? Almost only 40 as compared to the 195 watt per meter square energy that used to be liberated out when no greenhouse gases were present. So what is the causes of this greenhouse effect? Burning of these fossil fuels is estimated to contribute about 50% of the gases that are thought to be responsible for the greenhouse effect, that is global warming. Many greenhouse gases occur naturally in the environment, such as water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and ozone. Others, such as hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, and sulfur hexafluoride, these are solely created by human activities or anthropogenic activities. Carbon dioxide, it enters the atmosphere through the burning of fossil fuels like oil, natural gas, and coal, burning of solid waste, trees, and wood product, and also as a result of other chemical reactions. Carbon dioxide is also removed from the atmosphere or sequestered when it is absorbed by plants as part of the biological carbon cycle. Nitrous oxide is emitted during various agricultural and industrial activities, as well as during combustion of fossil fuels and solid waste. Methane. Methane is emitted during the production and transport of coal, natural gas, and oil. Methane is also emitted when organic waste decomposes, whether in landfills or in connection with livestock farming. Fluorinated gases. Hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, and sulfur hexafluoride are synthetic, powerful greenhouse gases that are emitted from a variety of industrial processes. Fluorinated gases are sometimes used as substitutes for ozone depleting substances. These gases are typically emitted in smaller quantities, but because they are potent greenhouse gases, they are sometimes referred to as high global warming potential gases or high GWP gases. Greenhouse gases vary in their ability to absorb and hold heat in the atmosphere. HFCs and PFCs are the most heat absorbent, but there are also wide differences between naturally occurring gases. For example, nitrous oxide absorbs 270 times more heat per molecule than carbon dioxide, and methane absorbs 21 times more heat per molecule than carbon dioxide. However, carbon dioxide contributes the most since its level in the atmosphere is the highest. What are the effects of global warming? The weather. The effects will vary in different parts of the world. Some places will become drier and others will become wetter. Some areas will be warmer and some cooler. There may be some unpredicted storms, floods, and drought. All over the world, these weather changes will affect the kinds of crop that can be grown. So the plant, animals, and even people may find it difficult to survive in different conditions. Sea level. Higher temperatures will make the water of the seas and oceans expand. Ice melting in the Antarctic and Greenland will flow into the sea. All over the world, sea levels may rise perhaps by as much as 20 to 40 centimeters by the beginning of the next century. Higher sea levels will threaten the low-lying coastal areas of the world, such as Netherlands and Bangladesh. Throughout the world, millions of people and areas of land will be at danger from flooding. Many people will have to leave their homes and large areas of farmland will be ruined because of floods. Again, farming will also be affected. The changes in the weather will affect the types of crops grown in different parts of the world. Some crops such as wheat and rice grow better in higher temperatures, but other plants such as maize and sugarcane, they do not. Changes in the amount of rainfall will also affect how many plants grow. The effect of a change in the weather or on plant growth may lead to some countries not having enough food. Brazil, parts of Africa, Southeast Asia, and China will be affected the most, and many people may die of hunger. Plants and animals, it has taken millions of years for life to become used to conditions on Earth. As weather and temperature changes, the homes of plants and animals will be affected all over the world. For example, polar bears and seals will have to find new land for hunting and living if the ice in the Arctic melts. Many animals and plants may not be able to cope with these changes and could die. This could cause the loss of some animal and plant species in certain areas of the world. So not only plants and animals, human beings will also be affected. That is relationship between climate change and the global public health. The more direct health effects of climate change can include injuries and illness from severe weather, floods, and heat exposure, increases in disease caused by allergies, respiratory problem, and illness carried by insects or in water, and the threats to the safety and availability of our food and water supplies. So, to a large extent, public health depends on safe drinking water, sufficient shelter, and the good social conditions existing within that particular community. So, a change in the climate is likely to affect all these conditions. Warming climate as a result of the greenhouse effect is likely to bring some localized benefit like decreased winter depth in temperate climates and increases in food production in some regions. So that may be a short positive implication in case of this global warming. However, the health effect of a rapidly changing climate can likely to be overwhelmingly negative, particularly in the poorest communities, which have contributed least to greenhouse gas emissions. Some of the health effects include increase in frequency of heat wave, which may lead to forest fires, shortages in supply of fresh water, which may lead to drinking water crisis, and rising temperatures followed by variable precipitation. So this variable precipitation, which is basically not a natural one and goes in the unusual manner, it will affect or likely to decrease the production of staple foods in many of the poorest regions. So we have faced these kind of situations earlier also, that Tamil Nadu or the southern part of India, it was facing too much of drought conditions, where in the northern part it was having too much of precipitation at the very same time. So there is also rising of sea levels and prolongation of seasons for transmission of important vector-borne disease, as well as the alteration of the geographical range. So all these events leads to these type of problems. like we have excessive heat wave, we have forest fires, there is drought condition, there can be flood conditions due to excessive rainfall, and scanty rainfall or no rainfall will lead to drought conditions. So what is happening? We can have waterborne disease if there is flood or too much of rainfall. We can face malnutrition if there is too much of water. Then unseasonal water. Then what happens? The crops are destroyed. So naturally, we don't have crops for all the seeds are not there for eating. That is rice, wheat. It will lead to malnutrition. Coastal floodings may be there, and coastal flooding leads to this entry of salty water into the freshwater areas like ponds, leading to killing of the fishes. So naturally, there will be indirect effect will be a huge population displacement, which may lead to more disease and this food scarcity. So new diseases also move into the regions which lack either population immunity or a strong public health infrastructure. So this climate change is a very global problem. Therefore, in 1998, the Kyoto Protocol, which was negotiated in the Kyoto city of Japan, it requires participating countries to reduce their anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions, that is mainly CO2, methane, nitrous oxide, by at least 5% below in 1990 levels in the commitment period 2008 to 2012. So this was the criteria set by the Kyoto Protocol in the year, that is 2008 to 2012. They said that they will reduce. The Kyoto Protocol was eventually signed in Bonn in 2001 by 186 countries, but later on several countries like United States and I think it was Australia, which they actually signed off from this treaty, that is Kyoto Protocol treaty. So greenhouse effect we can reduce when we are reducing the or minimizing the use of fossil fuels. In that manner, we can reduce this global warming as well as differences in the global precipitation. So that lies in our hand, and one of the very negative impact of fossil fuels is the greenhouse effect.